torture so terrifying it was outlawed worldwide. They called it the ultimate punishment, a method so cruel that even the most hardened criminals shuddered at its mention. Entire civilizations used it, rulers swore by it, and yet, history remembers it as one of humanity's darkest secrets. This is the story of a torture so terrifying that the world finally agreed it must be outlawed forever. Brace yourself, some stories are too horrific to imagine, yet too real to ignore. Torture has existed as long as power itself. Kings, emperors, inquisitors, and dictators used fear to maintain control, often targeting the innocent along with the guilty. Among the countless devices designed to inflict pain, one method stood above all others in sheer horror. Known by different names across the globe, it was designed not merely to punish, but to break a person completely, mind, body, and spirit. Witnesses described it as a nightmare made flesh, and survivors, rare as they were forever scarred. This method didn't discriminate. Nobles, peasants, scholars, merchants, and even children could fall victim if accused of heresy, dissent, or minor crimes. And yet, for centuries, societies tolerated it because fear was the most effective tool of control. Unlike ordinary punishment, this technique relied on a precise combination of psychological and physical torment. Victims were restrained in ways that prevented sleep, sometimes for days, while excruciating pain was applied gradually. Their senses were manipulated, blinding lights, deafening sounds, and the relentless dripping of water on the forehead designed to crush their minds. Mechanical devices stretched limbs, dislocated joints, or forced victims into impossible positions. Some were exposed to freezing cold or scorching heat, while others were deprived of food and water for days. Survivors later described the feeling of being hollowed out from the inside, as if their very humanity was being stripped away. What made this torture unique and why it horrified even contemporary observers was the meticulous attention to psychological collapse. Torturers studied the human mind, learning precisely how long a person could endure before utter despair set in. And when it ended, the victim was often left alive, a broken shell, a living warning to others. In medieval Europe, inquisitors perfected these methods in dimly lit dungeons. Records describe devices so intricate that they resembled mechanisms from a nightmare, iron cuffs that slowly constricted, racks that could tear limbs, and cages that forced the body into unnatural positions. The screams of victims echoed endlessly through stone corridors, a horrifying chorus that officials used to intimidate entire towns. In Spain and Italy, the infamous Inquisition often used torture to extract confessions from those accused of heresy, witches, or political dissent. Victims were tied to chairs, stretched on racks, or submerged in water in ways that left them on the brink of death. In Asia, certain dynasties developed elaborate contraptions, combining confinement with mutilation, where even minor movements could result in severe injury. Ancient Chinese and Japanese records detailed punishments so cruel that officials kept detailed logs of human endurance, treating it almost like a science. In some cases, family members were forced to witness the suffering of their loved ones, instilling terror that extended beyond the immediate victim. In the New World, colonists and conquerors used public punishment to instill fear. Entire communities witnessed executions or tortures meant to enforce obedience, often for crimes as minor as theft or speaking against authority. The psychological impact was immense. Fear became a tool to control populations before laws or reason could intervene. One particularly notorious case involved a political prisoner accused of plotting against the crown, despite overwhelming evidence of innocence. He was subjected to this torture for weeks. Days and nights blurred together. Hallucinations overtook reality. When he was finally released, his mind was fractured, his body permanently weakened. Some historians argue that the psychological scars left by this torture were more enduring than the physical ones, haunting survivors for decades. Others never recovered, disappearing into the shadows of history, their stories largely untold. Even children were not spared. In some cultures, they were forced to witness the torment of adults as a lesson in obedience. Witnesses later recounted seeing their innocence crushed by fear, leaving generations traumatized and conditioned to comply. This method of control was comprehensive, targeting the body, the mind, and the spirit. It was terror weaponized with precision. Yet horror alone did not end these practices. Change came only when voices rose in protest. Philosophers, humanitarians, writers, and reformers began to decry sanctioned cruelty. Enlightenment thinkers argued that no society could call itself civilized while permitting such horrors. By the 18th and 19th centuries, nations began codifying laws against cruelty, influenced by moral, religious, and philosophical movements, public opinion gradually shifted. International treaties, including the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, explicitly outlawed torture in all forms. What had once been accepted as a tool of governance became a crime against humanity. Even after outlawing, the shadow of cruelty lingered. Hidden prisons, secret chambers, and undocumented methods persisted in some regions. Rumors of clandestine practices reminded the world that vigilance is required to protect human dignity. History teaches that cruelty thrives in silence, and that only active resistance and awareness can prevent its resurgence. The cultural impact of this torture method was profound. Literature, folklore, and art reflected humanity's fear and horror. From medieval manuscripts depicting dungeons to modern films, evoking psychological terror, this legacy continues to haunt our collective imagination. Survivor stories, passed down through generations, serve as chilling reminders that fear was weaponized with surgical precision. Some accounts describe victims whispering their torment to posterity, desperate to ensure that the world would remember. Psychologists today study these accounts to understand the lasting trauma inflicted by prolonged torture. Survivors often live with anxiety, depression, and hallucinations for decades. Families of victims carried the emotional scars, sometimes for generations. The legacy of fear outlasted the physical devices, proving that psychological torment can be even more enduring than physical pain. Today, we reflect on these dark chapters with horror, but also with an urgent warning. Torture didn't disappear by chance. It was outlawed because people refused to accept that cruelty could be justified, because voices rose against injustice, and because humanity finally demanded moral accountability. Remembering these horrors is not just a lesson. In history, it is a shield for the future. This was a torture so terrifying that the world agreed it must be outlawed. Yet, the echoes of fear it left behind still haunt us. Secret chambers, hidden prisons, and whispered stories remain a warning. Cruelty can thrive only where silence prevails. Share this story, remember the victims, and never forget what humanity is capable of when cruelty is allowed to flourish. History may be distant, but its lessons are eternal. Vigilance, compassion, and awareness are the shields that guard against the darkness.